Hello everyone, I'm Nathaniel Bois and I'm working at Thales Global Services, and we'll talk about live collaborative modeling across industry.
I'm Stéphane Monet. I'm also working at Thales, and I'm the design authority of the main system engineering modeling workbench, and I'm the co-lead of the series project that you maybe saw this morning. So we're going to try to explain you how we have moved from what we were used to do with collaborating on models and what we are now doing with a solution based on CDO. So at Thales we started working on model-driven engineering about 10 years ago, and we have had to face a lot of challenges. First one was to improve communication between all the stakeholders of the system engineering. So our goal was that all the stakeholders would share the same concepts and have a common understanding of the same system. So this is something that modeling has helped for. One of the goals was to share a unique reference, like if someone needs an information, the information is in the model, so we share a unique reference. And until now, we also had the objective of making collaboration seamless. And until now, we didn't succeed in doing that. Like collaborating on models was still difficult. So how did we collaborate on models so far, till now? So basically we use the configuration management tools. So we're using check-in, check-out to work on the model and checking when we are over. The problem with that is that we were relying on model fragmentations. So we're splitting models in different fragments and splitting, reducing the granularity. But the problem is that models are graphs, and the fragmentation is hierarchical, so quickly it generates conflicts. Either the fragments are too small and you have a lot of overhead with configuration management tool. Either they are too big and then you have to wait that your co-worker is done. And another way was to use diff merge. And even though we now have powerful diff merge tooling, it's always difficult to merge with someone else's solutions. So what we realized was that team working on models is different from configuration management. There are two different concerns. And multi-user needs to be seamless, efficient, and not intrusive in the daily tasks of the engineers. So as a consequence, instead of having several users connected to the configuration management system, or ClickCase or whatever, we have moved to a solution where we have only one repository connected to the SCM, and several users collaborating live on this repository. So the requirements for the solution we have tried to build were that the logs should be on elements, should be fine-grained, with short duration, and they should be automated. So, for example, if we see what we have here, that with fragmentation, if I want to change something here, I need to have checked out the two fragments. If the logs are at model element, then I have a better solution to do that. And then we needed to have live model updates. If we had started to have to synchronize and to have views that we would need to synchronize with the repository and merge, that wouldn't work. So fine-grained, short duration and automated logs, and live model updates.
So this is where we started. We had the same workbench used by two different users who were working on the same models but on different parts of the models. But it was not possible for them to work at the same time on the same model. So what we needed to do is for them to work with the same model at the same time and to modify different parts of the model. So to do that, we had to change the persistence used in the model, and also to bring the multi-user, the transactional, and the collaborative capabilities. We made a first prototype. We had a look at the several solution, and we had a look at this project, which is very famous at Eclipse, and we looked at all the features, and we needed persistence, multi-users, transactional access, scalability, collaboration, and we also, maybe one day, we maybe also use the offline work. So, CDO was the perfect fit because each user, each client is connected to a server, and when a client makes a modification, it will make the modification on the server, and the server will notify each client. So you have also the live updates.
So our main criteria was that this should be simple for the end users. So on this slide, I'm going to explain what is the life cycle of a shared model. So first of all, we have a model as a file, as we know it usually. And the first step is to push this file into a repository. Then the users are going to collaborate on this model. At some point, we're going to push to pull this model from the repository, and we can do different things with that. We can either continue working, so the users will still work on the repository, and we're going to archive this file version of the model. We can take it and compare it with what is in the SCM, so using diff merge and deciding what we want to put back in the SCM. Maybe that's a way to have an integration role and to monitor what has been added by the end users. Yeah, we can archive it for safety and backup. So that's for the life cycle. Then, from the end user point of view, working on the shared model has to be simple as well. So instead of double-clicking on the file and opening the file, they just enter the server host ID, they give the name of the repository where the model is, they select the model, and they connect. So we have here what is on the repository. We have two clients with two users, and we separate the model between representations, so the diagrams, tables, and the model itself. The model is always shared. you cannot have a part of the model which would be on one of the clients. But for the representations, the diagrams and so on, we can have shared representations, and we can also have local representations, so local diagrams. For example, if I have started to work on a diagram, it's a draft. Maybe it's even a working diagram. I don't need to publish it, and it's just something I use to work. So there is a need to have both shared and local representation with move functionality between them. And even the local representation refer the shared model element. So model is always shared, representations can be shared.
Okay, so just before we've seen that we always have a server, and we can have multiple clients which can connect to the model. But we also need a way to make some administration on the server. So we have a special client with additional features, which can, for example, manage the user accounts, manage the sessions, push and pull the models. But it wasn't enough, in fact, and so we also added a third component, which is, in fact, a simple Jenkins installation with customized job, which gives us, in fact, a web UI, and have several jobs, for example, to start automatically the server, to stop it, and to make imports of the project automatically, for example, every hour, to make backups, to validate the models, to generate documentation, and so on. The good thing about that is it almost comes for free, because Jenkins is a good software. You can have email notification, scheduling, and so on. So, I propose you a little demo. So here we have one more bench. This local project, which is biased. In fact, you don't see the left part. Okay. Okay, so like I said, it's based on Sirius. So you have, of course, business elements here and diagrams. So what I want to do is push the model. So for that, I will start the web UI. And I will just start the server. So of course, you also have the log of the server if you need. Okay. Okay, server started. So once the server started, like Stefan said, we just have to push the model to the server. Of course, there is authentication.
Well, identification.
Identification.
Because passwords are just stored and clear, and not encrypted.
Okay. So basically, you take the local files, local model, and you push it to the CDO server, which will store it in a database.
So in a team, this would be one team administrator that would do that, and not the end users. The end users would just connect. This operation of uploading to the repository of tools would be more like an administration task.
Then once you push the model to the server, you have to connect to the remote model. So I can see I have another project. I select a good one. So immediately you see a little difference there. You see a small decorator. And you also have your username here. In fact, this model is stored on the server. You can see, for example, that the small decorator for the representation, because the representation, like Stefan said, can be local or distant, but this element can only be on the server. So the second step is to launch the second client. And do the exact same operation for the second client. Of course, I select the summary. Okay, so here you can see that we have user 2. The first thing I will try to do is, for example, rename an element. Okay, you can see there on the left that an automatic block was taken for user 1, and then on the right, a little red lock, which means that this element is already locked by user 1. Of course, if user 2 tries to modify this element, everything will be visible. But user 2 can also make some modification at the same time. It's the fine grain lock. And of course, user 1 will see also red lock. And then everyone can commit the modification when they want. And the state of the model is the same on both clients. Make it again. Okay. The second step is to have a look at the shared diagrams.
I have a quick question. Is a lock released when you save?
Yes, right now we synchronized. It's a choice that we made. We have synchronized the commit and the save. We also have the function, the feature of delaying the commit, but it's right now we didn't activate it in our tool, just because the end users right now we need to educate them, and if we already provide them the mean to separate the save and the commit, what they're going to do is to save, and commit like in 2 or 3 days, and then the logs will remain. And so right now we're in a stage where we have synchronized the commit and the save.
What happens if someone goes to lunch?
The other will wait. But if he goes on holiday, he can kill his session. Not a good thing, but it's possible. Okay. But one question, one feature was to have, in fact, a chat. So, for example, if one client is changing the diagram, or I can change the color, if I like it. Okay. You can see that the other user has an empty palette and cannot make any modifications to the diagram. If user 1 is saving his diagrams, then the user 2 is asked to refresh his diagram. But of course, if this user is changing the diagram, the first one can still rename semantic elements and commit them. So this one will just refresh the element, will have the new name, can commit back, and first user can make a refresh.
It went a bit fast.
Okay.
Like when someone.
Kind of magic.
Okay. you want me to do it with auto refresh? Okay, I will change
Okay,
something.
so right now on the right side, the diagram has been modified, and on the left side, you can still change some semantic elements, so model elements. And what we see on the right side is that the diagram is locked by me, so the green lock in the tab, but one specific element is locked by someone else. And this element, I can still change the color of the graphical box without changing the element.
Okay. Okay. And of course, if you're not a developer, but just a reviewer of the model, for example, you can decide to have automatic refresh for the representations. So, if this user decides to change the layout and commit and save, then the second user should have the same layout. With a bit fast also. Should we do it again? With some color. Nice.
What happens if the two users modify the same diagram?
It's not possible.
It's not possible because the user on the left modified the diagram.
The diagram is locked. The diagram itself
This
is
is a green lock in the tab bar of the red one.
This one can reflect any modification.
okay. Only the
It's exclusive lock on the diagrams.
Does it look semantic?
No.
You may not.
So I will ask you from other diagrams referencing the same semantic element.
Yes, we can have that. Different diagrams referencing the same semantic element.
Of course. If you want to have almost the same diagram and make other modifications, you can always clone the diagrams in remote or in local and make your own modifications. Or of course also move the diagrams in local, for example. And this one won't have the diagrams anymore because I moved it in local. Everything is possible. And that's almost all. You have also, for example, the committee story, which will show you every modification which is made. And to finish, for example, I can show you the safety. It's very important of the project. So, for example, every hour you will have a local project made automatically.
So we didn't see it here, but it's also working with sequence diagrams and tables and so on.
Okay. You want me to show
No, it's
sequence diagrams?
okay.
Perfect.
Oh, that's perfect. Okay. So, for example, I move this element, and save it, and you saw on the right that they have the same diagrams. Okay, so my import is done. So you can see that you're never locked on the server because locally we will have the project back in files. And also, for example, the committee story will be imported and so on and so on.
This is really important when we deploy the solution on operational projects. They want it to be reliable, and if we have a crash of the repository, if we have network issues, we need to have backups really often, and this automated import can be configured like every hour. So it means that you are always able to come back like one hour earlier. Yeah.
Is it possible to block the modification done by something else? For instance, I'm a reviewer, and during my review, I don't want to be polluted, I would say, by all the changes in the diagram I'm reviewing. I want to have some 1 hour when nothing changes because I want to have some.
Well, you can block the other users by like putting an explicit lock on the whole model recursively.
Okay.
So that would be one way. Another way would be to yourself do a pull from the repository. You get a copy of the model as a file, and then you're sure that it won't move. So you have several options to do that.
How we compare the changed diagram and with the old one? I mean, the diagram you changed one by one user, and then another user want to see what you change because maybe there your model is too small, but maybe you have a big model, some you change a lot of things, but another user want to know what you are changing.
Right now we don't have the change set automatically associated to the commits. That's something that we are currently developing and that will be available in a few months. And in that case, you should have like baselines regularly when you want, and this baseline can be the file version, and then you use just the standard diff merge. The diff merge is able to read on one side the file version of the model, and on the other side the repository version, and you are able to make changes in both ways. So there are two different answers to your question. Okay. Yeah, that's what we had. We have started to deploy the solution in Thales, widely in Thales in last year, middle of last year. First usage was in Canada in August, where they built transportation systems, and they rapidly had a team with about 10 people working on the same model every day, which is something that we never managed to set up with ClearCase or SVM. This was a very complicated development, and it's a solution which is very difficult to validate because there are many things that can happen, and having automated tests and so on, it's really complicated. So we have had a few bugs, a few issues, and the deployment has started like slow on pilot projects, and we were monitoring closely this project. Now the deployment is accelerating significantly this year.
That's fine. Okay. So, like Stefan said, it was a bit risky development. So we passed several technical obstacles on CDO, on Sirius, and on our side in our workbench. So as you can see, there is a lot of obstacles. So I suggest that you can choose two of them, maybe one, and we'll explain what the problem is. So, one.
Statement forms.
Several forms. This one. Okay. In fact, the CDO persistence and the local persistence are a bit different. I think the local persistence is more flexible and more acceptable. It's less difficult to use. And with CDO, in fact, if you have one object which will reference another and you delete the target object, the links will be a stale reference. In local, this is not a problem because most of the time the link will be not persisted. But with CDO, you won't be able to save your elements, your model at all. That's why we had the importer in the first time. And so also we had to make a lot of code review and a lot of topics of all of the tools to be sure that there was not any stale reference anymore.
Next topic because we have 5 minutes to finish.
Yes?
GMF extrinsic IDs.
Yes.
What is it about?
In fact, as in GMF, maybe you know that there is no intrinsic ID. So the object doesn't have an ID. And the ID is kept by the resource. And in CDO, this is not an exiliar resource. So when you push the model to CDO, you lose the ID.
GMF it's by position, right?
Sorry?
Within the GMF files, usually objects are
Yeah.
referred to by position and
Yes.
stuff like that.
But yeah, it was much more worse. It was because you push the model, you pull it without any modification, and the ID are not the same. So what we had to do is to make special resources to push the models and keep the IDs on the server, and to retrieve them when the model is going in local.
If I remember, CDO allowed to all the client to allocate the ID. I don't know if it works for all the computers.
There is internal IDs, but they cannot be used for the GMF ID.
Okay.
Okay, so a bit of this work is made part of the AGSIS project and will be given to the community. So a lot of patches and bug fixes were made by OBO and Thales and were given to CDO. We also worked on the GMF runtime native code. As part of EGF, we also make some portfolio to easily generate some CDO native code. There is also the export-import mechanism where you can keep the fragmentations, the markers, because in CDO you don't have local files, so you don't have local markers, and so on and so on. So, you can tell about it later.
Just because you mentioned OBO, that I forgot to mention, all this development has been done with OBO, in a close relationship with OBO, so this is on top of series. So feedback. We have no doubt that this approach is exactly what our system and software engineers needed. We have seen beginners take our modeling tool and don't even notice that they had to log or like to pay attention to that. The logs are automatic and it's completely, they feel it's natural and it doesn't slow them in their work. So we have no doubt that this approach was the right one. As I said, the product was not like 200% mature. We suffered a few bugs and some things that we were not able to reproduce because we were not in the same environment and the same timing. But the end users, the pilot project is all decided to stick with the tool because they saw more benefit in using it even with the small bugs than going back to ClearCase or SVM. And the only condition was that recovery had to be reliable. And that's why we invested a bit on this importing script and on Jenkins for the administration. So as soon as we were able to tell them, okay, you will never lose more work than an hour earlier, they felt happy about that. And actually, the crash of the server or corruption of the database it doesn't happen that often. It's not even once a week. It depends. like in a few months they
No, I can go.
3 or 4.
No, I can go.
Yeah, now we can take holidays. The next step. Actually, it doesn't matter how risky and complex this development was. From the end user point of view, now it's just normal. It's a normal solution and it's part of the tool. And they are like bugging us with things that we are not like keen on working on, like an enhancement of the IT aspects, like deploying, putting the server on environments where they don't have the administration rights. They want to administrate the server remotely. They can't modify the files as we told them. They want to manage multiple repositories with only one server, so it's more like deployment topics. I think we already had a few questions, but if you have any others, okay, we'll start.
There's excuse me. There's an audit mode in CDO. Why did you use exported files instead of the audit mode? Maybe that didn't fit. There's a feature of audit in CDO that saves every version of the repository.
Yes,
Why didn't you?
it was the first point of Stefan that we want to split the configuration concerns and the collaboration concerns. So even if we had audit, we may use it. I think we can activate it easily. So we will have the history in the project. But for us, in fact, the reference will always be in the SCO.
The CDO server is only one version. We don't want to manage versions on the repository.
I don't know something. What did you do on the development of the platform? On the development of the platform, did you provide just a life cycle and use CDO and Orion, or did you provide some development, the bridge between?
Yeah, in fact, CDO is a really great tool, but in fact you have to adapt your workbench to use CDO. Because, for example, the e-file, when you made a workbench with modeling tools, most of the time you assume that you have e-files. For example, just one thing, and so you have to go over all your code to make sure that you will never make reference to an e-file. It's not just the import and the scheduler. You have to build differently when you make your workbench. You make a lot of tests.
And today we share your work on Eclipse, or just a solution?
We have some part of it which will be shared, but not everything, of course.
The solution itself is not shared. It's available as part of Audio Designer, which will be based on Series, but Audio Design it's something that will be commercialized probably. But what we did was contribute to the existing things. And for example, we have been using the legacy mode of CDO, which wasn't as mature as the native mode. We went through a lot of problems, and we have contributed to making it more stable. So today, what we give back to the OSS is
You said that configuration management was taken care of separately. Do you still have an integration of it through the team provider stuff of Eclipse so that the end user can compare to versions without having to look for the right archive somewhere else?
I'm not sure I get the point.
Because you said that tag branching was not handled in the repository itself, but separately. So can you still get access to previous versions and compare?
The end user can still can go on the SCM whenever he wants and just check out the model of the file and do different between different branches and use the diff merge tool. So it's you can do everything you need, and for us we really see the CDO server as something temporary. So if you have a main line, a main branch, you start a new branch. Then if you need to have several users working on that branch, you initiate a new repository. When you're done, you kill the repository. It's really. There was one question.
Yeah, actually, this is following the question before. Is maybe it's a question more to be asked to the OBO guys. But if we use Sirius now with CDO, how close to this can we come on the open source side? And for what feature do we need more like to buy OBO designer? I think.
Well, trust me, you will have to make a lot of work to make serious write on work on CDO, sorry.
Yeah, it's
work, and as Stefan explained, it's part of OBO Designer, so it's a commercial feature because we cannot open source everything.
Yeah, clear. It would be interesting to have like a paper with showing the.
To give you an idea, it's 2 or 3 years of work on top of Sirius, and a few guys involved on both sides, Thales and OBO. So it's
I guess it's a lot of
an expensive development.
The main difficulty is that Sirius is based on EMF transaction, which is the first transactional system, and now we are adding a new transactional system, which is CDO. And the main difficulty is to make it coexist and
the good thing is that you have a roadmap here.
Yeah, exactly.
Alex just told about one point, it's Sirius 2.2. For example.
What about performance? Have you experienced with very large model? Because now, with the fragment approach, you could eventually get only load some fragment of your model and get lazy loading, and then
that lazy loading wasn't already working with our previous models because our tool, our users, they always want to have the global context. So if they click on an element, they want to see everything that refers the element, or like they want to have the global picture. So even with fragmentation, we were not able to do lazy loading. With performance, yes, we have quite a few projects which are pretty big. And I think we have reached the limits of the 32-bit version of the GAVM. So right now, for these projects, we're just moving to the 64 bits. So everything is not perfect, but it also depends on your infrastructure. What we recommend is to use like a session server, so like a Windows 2003 server or something like that. Have multiple user accounts, the server running on the same machine in order to avoid the bandwidth latency. And but yeah, it's running well at the moment, but we are like working on performance with something like it's completely iterative. We never get rid of that.
so your head will be
Well, or 0. But for example, we have teams that work in multi-site. Like yesterday, I was in Stuttgart and I saw people in Berlin modifying the models that we were seeing, and just because they were like using remote desktop, so everything is not on our side. We can do pretty nice things.
Is there a case for having real time? When someone has a lock on the model, you don't see what they're changing. You know that they're changing something.
Yes.
There's no need to show that they're in real time because you're already sending information to the
exactly. That's true. For example, when someone deletes something, when someone deletes an element, he sees that the other one sees that there is a lock. He doesn't know that the element won't exist anymore. So right now it's enough for our end users. They don't need more than that, and it's already much better than what they had before.
Yeah, and during the prototype we tried this approach, so anytime a user makes a modification, instead of locking, we commit. But it was just not a good user experience. Everything was moving everywhere, and I don't think it's such a good idea.
Yeah. And having a tool which is powerful enough doesn't free the end users to be a bit clever and to talk to each other, and to have organization as well.
And